Today, the average person sees their own reflection dozens of times before lunch. But for most of human history, you would have gone your entire life barely knowing what you looked like. And that simple fact changed everything about how humans understood identity, beauty, and the self. For hundreds of thousands of years, the only reflection available was still water. A calm lake. A puddle after rain. Cup your hands and peer in. That was it. The image was dim, distorted, and gone the moment the wind moved. You knew your hands. You knew your body. But your face? That was mostly a mystery, seen only in the expressions of other people reacting to you. Around 400 BC, the Egyptians changed things. They discovered that polished copper could reflect a face clearly enough to be useful. But here's the catch, only the wealthy could own one. A polished metal mirror was expensive, fragile, and required constant maintenance to stop it tarnishing. For ordinary people, nothing changed. Your face was still something other people knew better than you did. By Roman times, small hand mirrors made of polished bronze or silver became status symbols among the elite. Roman writers describe women spending hours at their mirrors, and then criticizing them for it. But the reflection was still dim. Still yellowish. Still nothing like what we'd recognize today. The Romans had no idea what they actually looked like in natural color. In medieval Europe, mirrors were so rare and expensive that most common people went their entire lives without owning one. If you wanted to know if your hair was neat, you asked someone. If you wanted to know how you looked before a wedding, your mother told you. Your face existed almost entirely in other people's descriptions of it. Then in the 13th century, Venetian glassmakers on the island of Murano discovered something remarkable. If you blew a cylinder of glass, cut it flat, and backed it with a thin layer of mercury and tin, you got a reflection so clear it looked almost magical. The Venetian mirror was born, and Venice immediately made it a state secret. Glassmakers were forbidden from leaving the island. The penalty for sharing the technique with outsiders was death. For nearly 2 centuries, Venice held a monopoly on clear mirrors and charged fortunes for them. In 1665, the French had enough. King Louis XIV, the same king who lit Paris's streets, sent spies to Venice to smuggle out glassmakers. Several were successfully recruited. Venice reportedly sent assassins after them. France got its mirror technique. The Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, built shortly after, was essentially Louis XIV flexing on every visiting dignitary. You think mirrors are expensive? I made a hallway out of 357 of them. It wasn't until the 19th century that mirrors became cheap enough for ordinary households to own. The silver backing process, invented in 1835, replaced toxic mercury and drove costs down. For the first time in human history, average people could see themselves clearly, daily, in their own homes. That's less than 200 years ago. And here's where it gets interesting. Psychologists who study cultures with limited mirror access find that people in those communities have a fundamentally different relationship with their appearance. They're less self-critical. Less focused on symmetry and flaws. More reliant on social feedback, how people treat you, as the signal for how you're perceived. Some researchers argue that the mass availability of mirrors, and now front-facing cameras, has rewired how humans experience self-image in ways we're only beginning to understand. Before mirrors, you didn't see yourself. You felt yourself, through the eyes of the people around you. Maybe that's not entirely a bad way to know who you are.